Ciao, homie.
Well, event number 1 at the Rogue Invitational inaugural Strongman Contest 2021 is complete, and it was the Elephant Bar Deadlift. And we should take a look at what the results were. Some were surprising, some were expected. I picked the right winner. But aside from that, we did have a few surprises, so let's have a look at how that panned out. First of all, the contest is being held at the Dell Diamond, a 12,000-seat outdoor stadium in Round Rock, Texas, just outside the Austin, Texas area. You have commentator Sean Woodland and Big Laz Lawrence Shahley. So always incredible to see Big Laz with his wealth of experience and knowledge commentating on these particular contests. So let's jump right into what happened in the deadlift. So the way that it was organized is it was an elephant bar deadlift, so the bar that has a bit of flex in it. They get to choose their weights as they go along, and the weight never goes down on the bar. So when a particular competitor takes his lift, and each of them got up to 3 lifts. When he takes his lift, the next competitor to go has to attempt that weight or more. The weight never goes down. So an interesting set of circumstances here on this particular event. So we have first Mikhail Shivlikov, who unfortunately zeroed. He came in 9th in the order, so a bunch of guys went before him. And when I say 9th, as I said, you have to have the weight on the bar never go down. So you can have, for example, Luke Stoltman went 2 times before, some guys went 1 time. So when I say 9th, I mean it's the 9th guy we saw, but maybe somebody we saw before may have gone more than once. Crazy thing, he didn't have his beret this time, so Laz mentioned it. I noticed it as well. Very strange for Shivlikov not to have his beret. He had a super narrow stance with his toes pointed out. So, you know, a lot of the guys having different stances from each other. His calf and his hamstring, he had them both pretty heavily wrapped up, and he looked like he injured one of them on his right leg at the lift. He really couldn't get the lift up at 891 and seemed injured right away, unfortunately.
Training in a home gym, especially if you're training by yourself, can be tough because sometimes you just don't have the motivation to go in your garage or your basement and get it done. And that's why we stream competitions every month on the Garage and Life Media YouTube channel. I'm John Greaves of Theraphonic Garage and Life Media, and after 20 years of training in a home gym, I can tell you that there's some days when I just don't feel like training. And those are the days when I put on some sort of training video or other strength-related content to give me the extra motivation I need to get in there and get it done. There is nothing more motivating than seeing people achieving their goals at a powerlifting meet or a strongman competition. And that's why month after month, we provide that content to you right there in the comfort of your own home on our YouTube channel. Plus, we leave it up forever so you can always just throw it on in the background anytime you need that extra dose of motivation to get you going. And that's why, if you're not already a subscriber to Garage and Life Media, I invite you to take advantage of this opportunity to add this powerful training tool into your arsenal, because I want you to succeed right there in the best gym in town.
We then had another 0 on the elephant bar deadlift, and that was Matthias Keliskowski, and he went first, so he couldn't budge his opening weight at all. It was 781 for him, so that was the lightest weight on the bar for anybody. He tapped his right lat afterwards, so hopefully not an injury there either. We then had 3 points going to Luke Stoltman, so he went 3rd in the order. His first lift was 801, no problem at all. He was fast off the floor at 846 as well, but needed a hitch to lock it out, but did get it. And that was as far as he would go. He looked close to 100% of his ability at 846. So I didn't think he would get any more, and he failed at 886 when he came back up in the order when it was his turn once again. Then we had 4 points going to Jerry Pritchett, who managed 856 pounds. So he went 4th in the order. Started off with 806 on his first lift. It was slow and steady, but did not look as explosive as he has in the past. His second lift at 856, so 50 pounds more, looked better for some reason, so he maybe warmed into the movement a bit. Then he came back up for a third lift at 906, and it wouldn't come off the ground, so 856, 4 points for Jerry Pritchett. Then we have Alexey Novakov, who went 5th in the order. He was started off at 821 pounds, slow off the ground, but seemed to accelerate all the way through. His second lift at 861 seemed very easy and very smooth to me. He had a narrow stance, toes pointed into the floor, as Laz mentioned, so kind of to help that leg drive. He failed 896 right around the knee height. And it was weird. He brought his phone to the lift and laid it down next to the bar. Maybe something a lot of guys do that I've never noticed, but I noticed it this time. It was pretty funny. So 861 pounds or 5 points for Alexi Novakov. Moving on up, we have 6 points going to Rob Kearney. So what I've noticed so far is each of these guys, I was kind of off by one predicted placing on a lot of them, except for Shivlikov. So pretty close. I was, high one or low one. So interesting how the algorithm's panning out. But 876 pounds for Rob Kearney. He went 7th, started off at 876. He had a big controlled hitch halfway through, which Laz mentioned was reminiscent of his coach, Derek Poundstone, and he gets it with that controlled hitch. He misses 911 pounds after getting it around the knee area. Tried for a second time, but it wouldn't come off the ground. 7 points then go to Brian Shaw. So Brian manages 881 pounds on the elephant bar deadlift. He went 8th in the order. He was slow and solid at 881. 911 moved about an inch or two off the ground. So his second lift was 911 pounds, and he moved it about an inch. Then he kind of took a hop afterwards, so hopefully it was just momentum carrying him backward and not any kind of injury. 8 points then went to Martins Lisis, who went 6th in the order, started off at 856 pounds. He walked up to be kind of 5th in the order, but then they said, oh, wait a minute, Luke Stoltman's declared weight is actually 10 pounds less than yours at 846, so he has to go first, so Lisis had to go sit down and wait his turn again. It was a little bit strange, but a lot of effort to get his first lift up at 856, but he did power through it. I didn't see any hitches there, and then he, big kiss to the crowd. I think he's really appreciating the opportunity to be back on the scene at the highest level and really enjoying himself. And by the way, the crowd was really loud for everyone during this event, cheering like even during the lifts, not just after successful lifts, but cheering to kind of egg the guys on and really motivate them through. The crowd has been really, really into it, which was awesome to hear for sure. And then we had 9 points going to Tom Stoltman. So Tom, not showing signs of fatigue from the very recent Britain's Strongest Man win. Tom Stoltman, 9 points here, 911 pounds for him, so he went 2nd in the order. Opened up at 796 pounds. It was an easy, comfortable pull. Big Laz said maybe he wanted to get comfortable since he's never lifted on this bar before, so he started off at maybe a little bit lighter weight. Second lift was at 881. It looked easier than Brian's 881 for sure. You could see a difference in the level of effort. And his third lift at 911 pounds looked pretty smooth as well. I wouldn't say it was easy, but it wasn't hard either. There was not a doubt he was that he wouldn't make it. So 911 pounds for Tom Stoltman. And our winner, which I happen to have predicted correctly, 10 points go to J.F. Caron. So he went last in the order. He opened up at 906 pounds. It was a speed rep for him. It looked unbelievable. I'll put up some pictures here so you can see it. And 926 was his second lift, another speed rep. He went and kind of had a quick discussion with Brian. Brian had already missed 911 by that point, I think. So I don't know that I don't know if he'd be allowed a third lift, but if he would be, I don't think Brian thought he would beat JF on this particular day at this particular event. So after that discussion with Brian Shaw and Jerry Pritchett, and then he walked over to Matthias as well, but Matthias was never in the running here. I guess the decision was made, like JF won't take a third attempt. He'll take the win, and everybody's fine with that. So 926 pounds and 10 points in event number 1 at the Rogue Invitational Strongman 2021 goes to JF Caron. So he's off to a roaring start. And I think the Sear Dumbbell Medley begins in about a half hour Central Time. So I'll keep my eyes open for that, and we'll see you again after that event has concluded. And at this time, I'd like to let you know that this video is being sponsored by our good friends at Garage Gym Life Media. If you like some of the analysis I've done on domestic contests in the past and want to know some more about the fine folks who are putting together and streaming some of those contests, I'm going to let John Greaves III, the founder of Garage Gym Life Media, tell you a little more about it.
Training in a home gym, especially if you're training by yourself, can be tough because sometimes you just don't have the motivation to go in your garage or your basement and get it done. And that's why we stream competitions every month on the Garage Gym Life Media YouTube channel. I'm John Greaves III, founder of Garage Gym Life Media, and after 20 years of training in a home gym, I can tell you that there's some days when I just don't feel like training. And those are the days when I put on some sort of training video or other strength-related content to give me the extra motivation I need to get in there and get it done. There is nothing more motivating than seeing people achieving their goals at a powerlifting meet or a strongman competition. And that's why month after month, we provide that content to you right there in the comfort of your own home on our YouTube channel. Plus, we leave it up forever so you can always just throw it on in the background anytime you need that extra dose of motivation to get you going. And that's why, if you're not already a subscriber to Garage Online Media, I invite you to take advantage of this opportunity to add this powerful training tool into your arsenal, because I want you to succeed right there in the best gym in town.
So the Rogue Invitational 2021 Strongman Contest continues to excite, and the SEER Dumbbell Medley has now come to an end on October 29th, 2021. Let's get into the results, but first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to the production value. So this is happening in an outdoor stadium. The sound is great with the commentators, with the announcers. There was a little bit of an echo with one of the announcers at one point, but other than that, you can hear it really well. It's better than a lot of other contests I've heard audio-wise in the past. It's different from Giants Live, so it's not the sort of showmanship that Giants Live does, in more of a, I don't want to say a circus atmosphere, but Neil Pickup is pretty dramatic. I really like him, but it's not that sort of over-the-top drama stadium show. It's more of a, let's go out in the field and see what we can do. So it's a different type of exciting, but I'm really liking it a lot. And I've been putting this in my descriptions, but I'll let you know here once again. Go to the Rogue Fitness YouTube channel, as you can see right here. They're live streaming all 3 days of the Rogue Invitational, so you should check it out there after you check out my results and analysis. So let's have a look at what happened in the SEER dumbbell. So just to give you a little reminder, the SEER dumbbell, there were 5 of them in this medley, starting off with 253 pounds, then 274 pounds, then 280, then 290, and then 300 pounds. So the idea is to see how many of those implements the athletes can get through in a 2.5 minute time limit. So they said that Matthias Keliskowski has the world record at 320 pounds, but he was interviewed ahead of time and said he was a little bit nervous, due to the injuries that he's had to fight through and whatnot, and not feeling as confident as he otherwise might. So starting off with Jerry Pritchett. Jerry unfortunately zeroed this event. He went in the second pairing, so these were head-to-head. He went in the second pairing versus Luke Stoltman. He kind of walked very slowly to the first one, to the 253, like he didn't seem very confident in it and his abilities with that today. So he grabbed it. He seemed to not even really try, kind of put it down. He kicked it around a little bit. He was shaking out his legs, so hopefully he's not suffering with some injury in his legs that is bothering him, where he kind of knew that he wouldn't have the leg drive to do this, so wishing Jerry the best there. Moving on up, JF Caron came away with 2 points, and I'll caveat this by saying these are the points that are on Strongman Archives right now, which seem to make a little more sense to me. When I look at the points that they posted on the live stream, they didn't show points for this event, but they showed overall points, and I can sort of subtract out event number 1, and some of them don't add up the way I would expect, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So JF Caron, 2 points. He had 1 implement, so he went in the 5th pairing versus Tom Stoltman. They gave the weights for some of the guys, so JF weighing 342 today. He was the first of the 2 to get to the 253-pound dumbbell, but Tom pressed it faster. Then JF missed 274, but Tom got it on an extraordinarily wide stance, so he kind of like spread his legs way out. I'll pop a photo up here for you so you can see, but locked it out and got the good call there. JF failed 2 attempts at 274 with, he dipped and seemed to like sit in his dip for a second or so, so I don't know if that affected him poorly or not, but just something I noticed. 3 points going to Mikhail Shivlikov, who did 1 implement, possibly a little bit faster, and that's why he gets the 3 points. He went first versus Matthias Keliskowski. He was so close on 274 after a bunch of tries, but didn't quite get it. But, Mikhail doesn't give up, so he kept going. 4 points to Luke Stoltman, so he also gets 1 implement. He went in the second pairing versus Jerry Pritchett. He got 253 with no problem, and he was moving fast to the first and second one. He had 2 failed attempts at 274, and that was it for Luke. 5 points went to Rob Kearney, so Rob went in the 3rd pairing versus Alexi Novakov. The 253-pounder was no problem for him, but then he walked to the 274 while Alexi was running to all of them, so maybe, something in his mind, a lack of confidence or something leading into that second dumbbell. He got close on it, but couldn't quite lock it out, so 5 points going to Rob Kearney. 6 points to Tom Stoltman, who went 5th in the order versus JF Caron. They said he's weighing 397, so a big boy. He looked great on the first two. He chalked in between the first and the second one, so not a huge hurry between those two. He then attempts the 280-pounder, and he has it on his shoulder and kind of lifts and loses it behind him, and that was it. He kind of called it there. 7 points go to Brian Shaw. So Brian got 2 implements. He went 4th versus Martins Lisis. They said Brian's weighing 405 today, so not the heaviest he's ever been, not the lightest either. Maybe a good balance for him. Second attempt on the 280 caused him a limp. So he tried the 280, he failed it. He tried it again, and he went limping away. He came back to try it again, eventually had a conversation with one of the judges, so I don't know if the conversation was around how much time was remaining, but seemed to make a decision there to call it there, and kind of did a hand on heart, thanking the crowd gesture. Matthias Kuliskowski, 8 points for him, so he gets 3 implements. He went first versus Mikhail Shivliakov. He could not lock out the 290. The 280 took him a bunch of steps back, so he got the 280 up, step back, and got it and fought through it and got the good call. And as I said, couldn't quite lock out the 290, but did very well here. 8 points for Mateos. 9 points going to Martins Lisis, so returning with a thunder. Went 4th versus Brian Shaw. Both of them, I felt, were both out fast. Brian actually pressed the first two a fraction faster than Martins did, so Martins seemed to have a small stumble, like had to stabilize himself, where Brian, maybe being the bigger guy, had stability, like the weight didn't move him around. And then, Martins got close on 290, but it crashed down on his shoulder, and he kind of briefly grabbed it again, but then stopped. So, that's going to cause some issues when a weight comes crashing down on your shoulder that weighs that much. And then 10 points goes to the winner, an astounding performance for Alexi Novakov, the only man to get all 5 of them. He does it in 59.59 seconds, remembering it's not a 60-second time limit, it's 2.5-minute time limit. He does it in under a minute. He was blazing fast. The first 4 all looked easy. The 5th one, he seemed to maybe pick up a little too fast, got it stuck on his chest, had to put it down, try again, but then even then, got it without much of a problem. Alexi had the same technique, the same exact dip, the same shoulder positioning. He was just a machine on this. It was incredible to watch, and truly earned this victory here. I felt he would win this event, and he did, and he looked astounding. The commentators were mentioning how maybe some folks in the crowd who have not seen Strongman before, because there are multiple different disciplines going on, he may have earned some new fans here for Strongman with that unbelievable performance. So that's how the Sear Dumbbell Medley shook out at the Rogue Invitational 2021. Happy Halloween, everybody. Halloween is tomorrow, but in case I don't put out a video tomorrow, I figured I'd wear my costume today and give you all that treat. Hopefully you're wearing yours too. Wheel of Pain at the Rogue Invitational 2021 has come to an end, and let's take a look at the results. So JF Caron went 6th in the order. He did not do well at all, unfortunately. He was very perpendicular, so kind of reaching far out. He was pretty low below the level of the bar. So kind of chest up, body low. He seemed to slow down very early. Then he was stopped twice by the referee using his shoulder into the bar. And we can kind of go through those rules here. So again, the Wheel of Pain, for those that don't know, is a 20,000-pound apparatus. It's 21 feet tall. It's 36 feet in diameter. Martins Lisis holds the record at a bit over 34 meters. There's barrels on the bottom filled with sand. So pushing it forward makes the sand sort of rock inside the barrels. There are 8 of them on which the apparatus is sort of rolling around in a circle. And it makes it impossible to gain momentum. So you get going forward, the sand sloshes back when you stop pushing, so there's really not an opportunity to get momentum there. This particular event had a 60-second time limit. As mentioned, your hands must stay on the rope portion, so the end of each beam or bar, as they were calling it, has kind of a dragon or gargoyle head. You can't go all the way to the end and push that, so you have to be in a little bit with a little bit less leverage on the rope-wrapped portion. Steve Slater was actually there as part of the crew to try to enforce that and make sure everybody was aware of what the placement was. You're not allowed to duck your head underneath the bar either, and no pushing with your back. So those were the rules. JF Caron dug his right shoulder into it. The ref made him stop, or the two refs made him stop. He then switched over to his left shoulder. They made him stop again. So we had heard these rules ahead of time. I didn't hear anything about not using shoulders. I heard about not using back, but apparently the athletes were told they can't use their shoulders. And he didn't make it very far after that either. So 29 feet, 6 inches for JF Caron, unfortunately did not do well at all. I did hear rumors after the fact that he's having a shoulder injury issue, so I hope that's not the case, but that's how that played out. 2 points went to Jerry Pritchett, who went 50 feet, 9 inches, so he went second in the order. Big Laz said he trained this by pushing his car uphill to mimic the sort of lack of momentum that you're able to gain with this type of apparatus. A question arose about whether height matters, since Jerry is on the taller end of some of the athletes, and Laz was saying no, it doesn't matter because he thinks that they're able to choose either the higher or lower beam or bar, so it kind of takes away that advantage or lack thereof. Jerry Pritchett used extended arms, so different from Mikhail Shivlikov, who we'll talk about in a moment, who was kind of very close to his body. Jerry was extended out in front of him. He was totally spent afterward and sort of resting against the log for a while they were coming up with the official distance. 3 points went to Brian Shaw, so some folks expected him to do a little better here, or a lot better here. I expected him to do one place better, so he kind of around where I thought, but turns out Brian suffering a hamstring injury from back on day one. He doesn't feel like he's going to stop. He can, as far as we're aware, will continue to compete throughout all of the events, but Laz was saying that this is more of kind of a quad dominant and less hamstring dominant movement anyway, so it shouldn't affect him too much. But either way, Brian comes away with 3 points at a distance of 54 feet 9 inches. He was already slowing down after passing the last place JF Caron, so started slowing down fairly early. Laz mentioned that Brian had a lot of hip movement, so sort of lateral movement in the hips instead of forcing all of his movement forward, like guys like Matthias Keliskowski, for example, did. And Brian went into a more upright position toward the end after he had stopped and, was just able to get minimal distance after that. 4 points go to Mikhail Shivliakov, so he went first. His hands were on the ropes. He was resting it sort of to one side, so his hands were on the ropes like you're allowed to do, but he's kind of over-favoring one side and pushing it like this, which I didn't see anybody else do. It was a solid run. He limped away afterward and seemed to be making motions of being apologetic to the crowd of maybe not being at 100% today, but this is when Laz started talking about how heavy these barrels are. So he said that one of these barrels was used in the CrossFit Games, and 8 of them are being expected to be pushed by one guy here. So incredible. 5 points go to Rob Kearney. So Rob does pretty close to where I expected him to do. He goes for 63 feet 3 inches. He went 5th in the order. He had very wide arms compared to some of the other guys. He took shorter steps, good leg drive. He started slowing down after passing Shivliakov's distance, which seemed to be kind of the threshold for a number of the guys. Like if you could get past Shiv, you were doing well, and if you couldn't, you were maybe a little bit on the lower end. And at this time, I'd like to let you know that this video is being sponsored by our good friends at Garage Gym Life Media. If you like some of the analysis I've done on domestic contests in the past and want to know some more about the fine folks who are putting together and streaming some of those contests, I'm going to let John Greaves III, the founder of Garage Gym Life Media, tell you a little more about it.
Training in a home gym, especially if you're training by yourself, can be tough because sometimes you just don't have the motivation to go in your garage or your basement and get it done. And that's why we stream competitions every month on the Garage Gym Life Media YouTube channel. I'm John Greaves III, founder of Garage Gym Life Media, and after 20 years of training in a home gym, I can tell you that there's some days when I just don't feel like training. And those are the days when I put on some sort of training video or other strength-related content to give me the extra motivation I need to get in there and get it done. There is nothing more motivating than seeing people achieving their goals at a powerlifting meet or a strongman competition. And that's why month after month, we provide that content to you right there in the comfort of your own home on our YouTube channel. Plus, we leave it up forever so you can always just throw it on in the background anytime you need that extra dose of motivation to get you going. And that's why if you're not already a subscriber to Garage Gym Life Media, I invite you to take advantage of this opportunity to add this powerful training tool into your arsenal, because I want you to succeed right there in the best gym in town.
6 points go to Luke Stoltman, and this is where I first noticed that Trey Mitchell was the official tester in helping reset the implement after every run, which was incredible. Luke went third in the order. He powered through almost the whole time with a short pause near the end to change from an extended to a collapsed arm position, but both hands out in front of them, not a very wide nor a very narrow stance. He actually took the lead by quite a bit when he went in his placing in the order. So 6 points to Luke Stoltman for 73 feet, 9 inches. We then have 7 points going to Alexey Novakov, who goes 76 feet, 3 inches. He went 8th in the order. He was fast off the start, slowed down around the Shivlikov magical marker. There were 7 seconds left when he finally stopped, but a nice last burst to pass the Luke Stoltman marker. He sat on the ground with Luke afterward with a shirt on his head, kind of staying out of the sun, so perhaps a very hot day there in the Austin area. So 7 points to Alexey Novakov. And I also noticed around this point that we were seeing distance markers on the leaderboard for some guys that were then later adjusted, and that's because they were giving you the distance that they had passed of the last person's name, and they didn't know exactly how much further until the final computation. So that's what was happening there. 8 points go to Matthias Keliskowski. So he went 83 feet 6 inches, went 4th in the order. Another cool thing I just noticed there was there's a 10-second warning before you have to jump in and begin. So they make them stand at the end of the log or the bar, and then they have to run into position and start. So I'm not really sure why they can't start right in front of it, but good that they have a 10-second warning. And I heard later even a 30-second warning, so they can kind of be ready and make everything sort of fair and square there. Turns out that Mateusz had a small lat tear prepping on an 880-pound deadlift a few weeks ago, so that may have affected him yesterday. Not the greatest deadlifter in the world anyway, but it seemed like he had some extra difficulty in day one. He was noticeably lower to the ground and with bigger strides than all the guys that went before him. A continuous movement all the way through to the 52-second mark thereabouts, and then he got stalled right there, so no one up to this point had moved all the way through the 60 seconds without stopping. 9 points then went to Martins Lisis. So I didn't see them put his distance on the leaderboards. I was trying to read it on the actual wheel, on the actual floor of the Wheel of Pain, and it looked like about 85 feet 6 inches to me. So that's what I'm putting here. That would make sense to put him at the 9-point threshold. So he went last in the order. He's weighing 355 today, so great endurance. So he didn't seem to have like any big stalls. He didn't seem to really ever tire out. He slowed down very, very gradually all the way through. He was out fast at the beginning, probably the fastest guy to actually get to the bar and get going. And he maintains first place overall without winning any event, so showing his incredible consistency. And that means the winner is Tom Stoltman, 10 points for Tom, so he went 9th in the order. Steve Slater, who's part of the crew, as I mentioned, explaining the rules to Tom. And he used shoulder width hand placement. He was strong all the way through the run. He had good forward momentum, and he becomes the new leader after his run. And apparently he's never done this in competition before, although he did do Titan's Turntable, which was a similar but not exactly the same thing at World's Strongest Man. So 10 points to Tom for 89 feet, 3 inches, and he wins the Wheel of Pain at the Rogue Invitational 2021. So that being said, let's take a look at the running place and running points. So this means who is the leader right now after 3 events with how many points. And so that performance was enough to put Tom into 2nd place with 25 points. And Martins did well enough to remain in 1st place. So the competitor coming out of a long layoff doing incredible so far, as I said, stays in 1st place without winning any events, but incredible consistency, 26 points for Martins Lisis. Then as we go down, Matthias Kuliskowski now in 4th place with 18 points, Alexi Novakov in 3rd place with 22 points, Luke Stoltman in 7th place with 13 points, Rob Kearney in 6th place with 16 points, Mikhail Shivlikov in 9th place with 9 points, Brian Shaw in 5th place with 17 points, and again with that hamstring injury now, Jerry Pritchett in last place with 7 points, JF Caron in 7th place with 13 points. So those are your running standings and total points thus far. That was the Wheel of Pain at the Rogue Invitational 2021. Happy Halloween, everyone. The 2021 Rogue Invitational Strongman Competition Yoke Log Medley has now completed, And it was a medley that a lot of us were scratching our heads about, putting together a moving event with a static event, but boy, did it excite. Let's take a look at the results. First of all, coming in with 1 point, we have Jerry Pritchett. So he did not move the yoke at all, unfortunately. He went first in the order. He got under the yoke, but seemed either injured or demoralized or just unmotivated by, maybe not being at his best at this competition. And as I said, didn't move it at all. He kind of slowly walked away, removed his belts, his gear, and kind of put his head down. So, not great to see Jerry not at his best. We do hope that if he is injured, he goes back, gets the necessary rest and recovery, and comes back stronger than ever. 2 points went to Mikhail Shivlikov, so he went second in the order after Jerry Pritchett. He completed the yoke. He had to put it down probably 5 or 6 times, but then he went on to the log portion. He had 2 attempts at the first log rep, but he got it lapped and couldn't get it past that at all. So 1 implement, meaning the yoke, in 49.3 seconds. So a perfect run here would be 4 implements in some sort of fast time. He got 1. 3 points went to Rob Kearney. So Rob went 5th in the order, weighing in at 285, so probably the lightest of all the competitors. He had a superb run on the yoke, as Laz described it. He was fast and steady, and then he had a good first log rep, but just barely didn't lock out on the second log. So he went for the second log, barely didn't get the lockout. Then he locked it out on the next try, but apparently not long enough. So Magnus Vera Magnuson usually will count a good lockout on a log rep if you've held it for about a second or so. Rob had it like instantaneously, but not for a second. Didn't get the down call, didn't seem too happy about it, was kind of doing that like I'm laughing because I don't want to be angry kind of thing. And I guess I'm kind of with him. I feel like if you lock it out, you lock it out. But for consistency's sake, it's not usually called that way, at least not by Magnus. It's usually called at 1 second, and he did what he usually does. So at that point, JF Caron remaining in the lead. So 2 implements for Rob Kearney, meaning the yoke and 1 log in 27.3 seconds. 4 points went to Luke Stoltman, who did 3 implements in 37.5 seconds. He went 4th in the order. He took 6 seconds to get the yoke up. So the way that this was set up was the competitors were at a starting line a few feet behind the yoke. The whistle goes off for them to start. They have to run to the yoke and then pick it up. So they're not immediately under the implement to get started. And he took 6 seconds to run there and lift it. There was kind of a noticeable big pause before he got it off the ground. Most other guys were taking about 4 seconds, so 6 was noticeable. He had a great pace on the yoke, and then his first 2 reps on the log were actually faster than JF Caron's at the time, even though he had a slight stabilization issue. But then he kind of hit a wall and couldn't do the third at all, so not sure if that's because of fatigue from the previous events, but he tried taking a sizable break and trying it again and had to dump it behind him. So Luke Stoltman, who many people would have thought would have done very well, especially on the log portion of this medley, not able to get that third rep. 3 implements for him. Brian Shaw got all 4 implements, so 96.2 seconds for him. He went 6th in the order. He wasn't especially fast on either the yoke or the logs, but he was smooth and steady on the yoke, got it all the way across. I don't believe he put it down at all. I believe he got across all in one go, and then he limped over to the log. So again, showing that unfortunate hamstring injury that he suffered on day 1. He showed some pain getting the first log into his lap, but they seemed smooth after that, so kind of probably warmed him to the motion. The remaining 3 reps were slow but easy, so like they, no pauses or stabilization at all with Brian. And then I put in my little joke here. Let's see how many times Big Laz, the commentator, can call Brian methodical, because he did so in several different events. I found that funny. 6 points go to Alexey Novakov, so he gets the 4 implements, but in 63.9 seconds, so considerably faster than Brian. He went 8th in the order. He was slightly behind Mateus' time on yoke, but still very fast, and he gets all 3 log reps done by about 40 seconds, which would have been faster than Matthias. However, he stumbled back and then went off the back of the platform and got a no call, even though he had the arms locked out on the third. So that really cost him there. I don't know that it would have made an overall placing difference, but it would have made a considerable difference in this event for sure. Magnus had his traditional 1 second lockout requirement instead of counting a lockout if it's instantaneous, which I had mentioned with Rob Kearney. This happened with Alexi as well. Like, I think he did get an instantaneous lockout before the stumble, but not for enough time for Magnus Magnuson to give him a good down call or a good call. JF Caron went third in the order. He was fast through the yoke and did it in under 20 seconds, and he was the first person to do the whole run without a drop. He then got all 3 log presses without a problem, 7 points to him, all implements in 54.4 seconds, that should say, 4 implements. 8 points go to Tom Stoltman, who does the 4 implements in 50.5 seconds, so a bit faster than JF Caron. He went 9th in the order. He wasn't fast through the yoke, wasn't slow either, but not necessarily as fast as some of the other guys, but steady and had no mistakes, no drops. A very wide stance on his yoke run, did it in around 20 seconds. The first log press attempt rolled forward a bit off his chest. He was able to adjust that and get it up on the same attempt, so didn't have to put it back down. And the other 2 reps went up very smoothly, so a good time and good points for Tom Stoltman. Martins Litzis, 9 points, 4 implements in 43.7 seconds for him. He went last in the order. He was the fastest person to lift the yoke at 3 seconds. So I said most guys were around the 4+ second mark. He did it in 3 seconds. So fastest to run there and got it up right away. The yoke was a little faster than Tom Stoltman. No drops. He got all 3 log reps. He had to adjust the first one at the lockout. So I had it all the way up and kind of had to make an adjustment at the lockout to get the good call. Then he had a solid second rep. And then the third rep, he had to make a little adjustment again, this time at the chest. But fast time for him for second place. Looking very big and determined, I say. So Martins weighing 355, I believe, today, which is bigger than he's been recently. Probably has been kind of building back up to his full competition size. So 9 points for him. And that means the winner is 10 points, Matthias Kuliskowski. So Matthias went 7th in the order. He was fast through the yoke, did it in 13 seconds, an unbelievable time. Then he one motioned all the log reps. So he went into the lead going 7th in the order and maintained that lead, 10 points for Mateos. So that's how the yoke log medley shook out at the 2021 Rogue Invitational Strongman competition. The 2021 Rogue Invitational Inverse Stones have come to a completion, and we have the results for you. So the inverse stones, the original ones in Scotland, were formed by a river, so they're kind of very smoothed out, but not perfect spheres, a little bit more oblong. A couple of them have sort of a flat side to them. So they present a unique challenge that is neither a spherical atlas stone, nor is it a natural stone with edges on it and places to grab it. So let's see how that all panned out. Well, some of you may be surprised to see Brian Shaw at the bottom of the list here with only 1 point. And here's why. So he went 6th in the order, and apparently he said it would be a game time decision on whether to do the stones or not based on his hamstring injury that he suffered on day 1. And he ended up just walking up to the stone slowly, kind of rolling it around a little bit, and putting his hands up in the air to call it, so that universal sign of I'm done sort of thing. And then he kind of went into a speech where he thanked and addressed the crowd, which I don't know, maybe I would have argued should have been done after the event was over. So he did it in the middle of the event. As I said, Bryant went 6th, so there would have been 4 other guys to still compete. And, you know, the whole world of fans and other competitors respect Brian immensely, so I'm sure nobody had a problem with it. I just thought it was, you know, and it was all positive stuff he was saying, thanking the crowd and the new fans and all that. I just thought it kind of would have been better placed like he did at World's Strongest Man at the end instead of when there were still guys left to go. 2 points went to Matthias Keliskowski. So Matthias does 1 stone only in 9.4 seconds. So he went 7th in the order right after Brian. And I say, wow, I was very surprised. He went very slow and easy on the first stone, very deliberate so as not to hurt his lat anymore, perhaps, and just called it and walked away and didn't even try anymore after that. So only 2 points for him. 3 points to Mikkel Shivliakov, who went 2nd in the order. He had a good effort. The first 2 flew over, but he just couldn't get that third stone up after many attempts. You know, Mikhail, he'll keep trying and trying. And he stopped around the 1 minute and 19 second mark after all those attempts. He even tried a position where he had his right arm a little forward and his left arm a little back so as to keep it from bobbling around, and that didn't work either. 2 implements in 13.3 seconds, so 2 in a very fast time for Mikhail Shivlikov for 3 points. 4 points went to Jerry Pritchett, so Jerry actually went first in the order here on the Inverstones. He got the first 2 stones pretty easily. No tacky was allowed here, so the third one at 365 pounds gave him some trouble after multiple attempts, and he had tacky towels, so tacky towels were allowed, and they're nowhere near as effective as actual tacky, but he was using those. He had one dangling from each side of his belt, so he kept trying to get some more grip there, but it just seemed like an issue of how to grab it in a position that was ideal rather than injury-based, so he may have been suffering some sort of pain, but it just looked to me more of, how can I grab this in the ideal way? And that's really what seemed to give him trouble. 2 implements in 12.1 seconds for Jerry Pritchett, so a very fast time through 2. Luke Stoltman manages 3 stones in 17.6 seconds for 5 points. He went third in the order. He was the first to clear the 365-pound stone and reach the 400-pound stone. He got it slightly off the ground, but it was pitching forward a bit, giving him trouble, so that was that. 6 points go to Alexey Novakov, so he went 8th in the order. He only needed 2 stones to stay in 3rd place overall, so the question was, will he try for his best or try for just enough to stay in his placing? So he ends up trying his best, so he ends up doing 4 stones in around 64.5 seconds. We didn't see an exact time. He was examining the stones ahead of time, as is his way. We've seen him do that with Atlas stones as well, and same thing here. So 4 stones for him. 7 points go to Rob Kearney. So Rob ends up doing 4 stones much faster in 33.4 seconds. He went 4th in the order, got the first 3 stones in less than 20 seconds. He was the first man to get the 400-pound stone over, and it looked easy. I'll pop up a picture here for you. And he was able to flip it into his lap with the flat portion away from him, I noticed. So that particular stone has a flat part to it. So if you can kind of pick it up and flip it, you then have a flat portion where your hands can sort of position themselves much more easily. It works for me for natural stones in the forest as well, although my stones are way lighter than that. But I noticed the same thing. If I can get into a position where I can brace it against my body and get my hands in a good position, it's way, way, way easier. So great positioning, great technique for Rob. He actually lapped the 420, but couldn't get it over. 8 points go to JF Caron. So JF does all 5 stones in 42.45 seconds. He went 5th in the order, and he was the first man to lift all 5 stones. All of them actually looked easy to me. A few different perfect techniques I noticed. So he did like probably 4 different things really well that contributed to this run. So 1, his forearms were perfectly squeezed. There was no gap in between, and it helps that he has giant, strong forearms, but he had a perfect squeeze on the side of the stones. 2, perfect lap technique. It was the same every time. Very standard, very efficient. 3, he timed his tacky towel usage at the perfect time. So he had them like Jerry, one hanging off each side of his belt, but he didn't use them till he needed to. And when he used it, he grabbed it, went like this and discarded it. And then went on to the next stone, grabbed that one like this and discarded it. It was like he had perfectly planned the timing of even how to use the tacky towels. So that was quite amazing. And then the last kind of technique that I think he used that was really good is when he was going to put it over, he used his massive chest to bump it over as well instead of putting it all on his arms and shoulders. So like I said, about 4 different really specific techniques that I saw him do that contributed to a really great run here. 8 points for JF Caron. 9 points go to Tom Stoltman. So he didn't win this stone run, but came very close. So all 5 in 30.08 seconds, went 9th in the order. He one motion the first 2 stones. He had a very fast run, so he moved ahead of JF Caron by the time he made his run, and they may have adjusted his time after because Strongman Archive said 29:16 at the time that I saw this. Strongman Archives may be updated now, but 30.08 is what we're seeing. And then we have the winner of the Inverse Stones, Martins Litzis, who does it in 23.53 seconds, all 5 stones. 10 points to Martins. He had to beat JF's time to clinch the win, and of course, did that. Martins Litzis wins the Inverse Stones. And that's how the Inverse Stones over Hitching Post shook out at the 2021 Rogue Invitational Strongman contest. So the 2021 Rogue Invitational Strongman Contest has come to a conclusion, and we have your overall standings and podium predictions. Let's have a look. Starting off in 10th place, we have Jerry Pritchett, who ends up with 12 points. I had predicted him to be in 10th. He actually ended up in 10th place, and that broke out into 4 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift for Jerry Pritchett, 1 point on the Sear Dumbbell Medley, 2 points on the Wheel of Pain, 1 point on the Yoke Log Medley, and 4 points on the Natural Inverse Stones. Moving on up, in 9th place, we have Mikhail Shivlikov, who ended up with a total of 13.5 points. That breaks out into 1.5 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift, 3 points on the Sear Dumbbell Medley, 4 points on the Wheel of Pain, 2 points on the Yoke Log Medley, and 3 points on the Inverse Stone 5-Stone Challenge. In 8th place, we have Luke Stoltman, who comes away with 22 points, and that breaks out into 3 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift, 4 points on the Sear Dumbbell Medley, 6 points on the Wheel of Pain, 4 points on the Yoke Log Medley, and 5 points on the Inverse Stones for Luke Stoltman for 8th place. In 7th place, we have Brian Shaw. So Brian Shaw, who I had predicted originally, I think, to be 7th place, but then I redid some of my predictions and put him in 2nd, so probably should have stuck with what I originally had, although you can't foresee injuries. So 7th place for Brian, with the hamstring injury he suffered on day 1, comes away with 23 points, and that broke out into 7 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift, so a good start for him. Sear Dumbbell Medley, 7 points as well. Wheel of Pain, 3 points. Yoke Log Medley, 5 points for Brian. And then in the Inverse Stones, we had, if you've watched my other videos, you would have seen I described he only got 1 point there because he didn't attempt it, really. He didn't want to aggravate his injury any further and kind of just went and touched it and called it a day. Rob Kearney comes away in 6th place, so 1 place worse than what I had predicted, 26 points for Rob. That broke into 6 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift, 5 points on the Sear Dumbbell Medley, 5 points on the Wheel of Pain, 3 points on the Yoke Log Medley, and 7 points for Rob Kearney on the Inverse Stone, so that puts him in 6th place. We move on up to JF Caron, who finishes in 5th place with a total of 28 points. JF wins the Elephant Bar Deadlift with 10 points. 2 points on the Sear Dumbbell Medley, so not so great there. 1 point on the Wheel of Pain. Yoke Log Medley was a good one for JF, 7 points there. And then 8 points on the Inverse Stones for JF Caron to finish very strong and put himself in 5th place overall. 4th place went to Matthias Keliskowski, so he finished with 29.5 points, and that broke out into 1.5 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift, where he zeroed, but then came back very strong. So Sear Dumbbell Medley was 8 points for Matthias. Wheel of Pain was 8 points for Matthias. He then came away with 10 points winning the Yoke Log Medley, and then only 2 points on the Inverse Stone. So imagine where Matthias would have placed if he had done, tried harder, if he was fully healthy enough to try harder on the Inverse Stones. And, if he's able to get his deadlift up one of these days, he's going to be a real threat on sets of events similar to these. So we have our podium. Alexey Novakov, who I had predicted to win, comes in 3rd, actually. 34 points for Alexi. He gets 5 points on the Elephant Bar Deadlift. He comes away with 10 points winning the Sear Dumbbell Medley in maybe the most dramatic moment of the whole show for the Strongmen. So go to the Rogue Fitness channel and watch if you haven't yet. You definitely want to see it for that moment, if for nothing else. And there were a lot of other great moments as well. Wheel of Pain, 7 points for Alexi. Yoke Log Medley, 6 points. And the Inverse Stone, 6 points. So he comes away with kind of finishing with a couple more mediocre points, which didn't help much in trying to boost him up any higher. But he does make the podium. Alexey Novakov, number 3. So that leaves us with number 2 and number 1. Number 2, Tom Stoltman comes in 2nd place with considerably more points. So 42 points for Tom Stoltman. 9 points on the elephant bar deadlift, did exceptionally well there. Sear dumbbell medley with 6 points for Tom. Wheel of Pain, he ends up winning with 10 points, and they had said he never did this before in competition. Then we have the yoke log medley. Tom gets 8 points there. The inverse stones, 9 points for Tom Stoltman. So quite a few very high scoring events for Tom, leaving him in second place overall at the 2021 Rogue Invitational. And then we have our overall winner, and that is the Return of the Dragon. Can I say that? Martins Lichis. First place for him, 45 points. And I gotta say, I had predicted him to be pretty high fourth place, but I'm surprised that after such a long absence and the injuries he's been through, he can come back and dominate in this way. Just huge congratulations to Martins. He had 8 points on the elephant bar deadlift, 9 points on the sear dumbbell medley, 9 on the Wheel of Pain, and there were discussions saying, like, he's in the lead and hasn't even won an event yet. No, but he was second in 2 of them, so let's give him credit where credit is due. He was not only consistent, but whatever the word is that's better than consistent. Super consistent. Yoke log, 9 points again, and then he wins the inverse stones, 10 points there. So Martins Lichis is your 2021 Rogue Invitational champion. Again, congratulations to our podium finishers, Martins Lichis, Tom Stoltman, and Alexey Novakov. Thanks again for joining me on my blog, Strongest Man, on this Halloween weekend. And of course, until next time, yeah!